Hello everybody, welcome back to the Brothers Grim Dark and another unit focus. Today we're talking about everybody's favourite cult leader. It's Priest Asgrim, the Morkai's Howl. He is, for the moment, the leader of my Space Wolves because I do not have a Wolf Lord yet. And he is also, fluff-wise, the leader of the Blood Hunters. So yes, this is a sort of inner cult within the Space Wolves, and he has been preaching throughout Fenris and the Fang, and the more he does, the more followers come to join the Blood Hunt. Yes, don't worry, the Great Wolf Grimner does know about this and sort of isn't exactly approving, but for now is letting Priest Asgrim do his thing. So that is the lore of him. He's kind of a sinister character, but we'll get into a little bit more of that in our narrative series that we've got coming up soon. But yeah, he's one of, if not my favourite unit in my army, because as I've talked about before, I just loved kit bash, and he really presented a good opportunity for me to do a fair bit of kit bashing. So his base is just the regular intercessor body, and then I stuck some bits on him from mostly the Ulrich the Slayer kit, which took a fair bit of fine chiseling. So obviously in that kit Ulrich is holding his helmet, so I had to cut around the hand and stick that in. He's got Ulrich's, doesn't have Ulrich's front, but he does have the his little his little teeth and gem necklace and cape, so that all had to be stuck onto the intercessor, which left a little bit of a gap at the back, which I just sort of, because obviously the intercessor body is bigger than Ulrich's, but I just managed to fill that in with some knives and pouches and things, so that was all good. And then yes, his favourite whacking stick is also from that kit, and again Ulrich's kind of holding it like this, so I had to chisel around Ulrich's hand and then do a bit of extra green stuff work onto the back of that to make it look a bit better. And that's mostly it. He's also got Ulrich's belt as well, his WWE champion belt, and his backpack. Oh yes, and obviously the crossbow is from, again, Age of Sigmar kit, just like a few things in my wolves from the Ogre Tribes kit. It's from the Stonehorn kit, and one of the riders on that has a crossbow, which I don't think is actually this one. There's also a crossbow that's just supposed to be hanging on that kit, which I used for this, and it required a little bit of modification just to make it a little bit smaller, so it looked a bit better on him. But that was a lot of fun to convert, and it just looks very silly in the 40k universe, just in a world of all these guns and plasma and laser weapons and things. He's rocking around with his crossbow. So I do like that about Priest Asgrim. So that's kind of the lore and the fluff and the conversion of him. But let's get into what he is on the tabletop for me. So as I say, he's usually my warlord. He's always my warlord, and he will remain as my warlord until I get a Wolf Lord painted up, which will happen at some point. But Asgrim does a fair job if you've seen so far. He's kind of a good force multiplier, and he's a bit of a combat beast himself. So I run him as a Primaris Chaplain. So he's movement 6, he's weapon skill 2+, he's bliss skill 3+. He's got he's strength 4, he's toughness 4, he's 5 wounds, he's 4 attacks, he's leadership 9, save 3+. That's kind of what you'd expect to be there. Absolver bolt pistol is his crossbow. So it's 18-inch range, it's got the pistol keyword, strength 5, it's AP -1, and it is damage 2. And he also has a Crozius Arcanum, melee weapon, strength +2, taking up strength 6, AP -1, and damage 2. He has Angels of Death keyword. He also has spiritual leaders, so any chapter core units within 6 inches of him can use his leadership. That's handy. especially when you're coming up against Night Lords, just to take you up to 9, that's useful. And he has the Rosarius, so he's got a 4-up invuln, and he has Wolf Priest keyword. So if this unit is in a Space Wolves chapter, which obviously for me it is, it has the Wolf Priest keyword. This model knows Litany of Hate and one other litany from the Litanies of Battle. In your command phase, if this model is on the battlefield, it can recite one litany it knows and has not already been recited by a friendly model this turn. Roll 1d6 on a 3+ recite litany. Is inspiring and takes effect until the start of your next command phase. So that's him. One thing I am going to be doing is converting him up a bike very soon. So I'll just go through the other option that I'll be running him as once that's done. It's Primaris Chaplain on bike. So basically the same, except his movement goes up to 14. His ballistic skill and weapons still stay the same, 2+, 3+. Strength 4, he gets an extra toughness, handy, and he gets an extra 2 wounds, very handy. He obviously loses the infantry keyword, so there's going to be some places on the board he can't go, but with an extra, well, going from 6-inch to 14-inch move, I kind of don't care. There'll be plenty of things that he can do. Yeah, you'll have seen this. This is one of the best Space Marine HQs in the game at the moment, just because he's got a lot of mobility, he's a force multiplier, he can be a combat beast, and he turns out a little bit of shooting as well. So he also gets the twin bolt rifle, so he's rapid fire 2, 30-inch range, strength 4, AP -1, damage 1. He's got that on top of his pistol, obviously can't fire the pistol and that in the same turn. But yeah, he's just very good, and on top of that he gets the turbo boost, so each time this model advances, don't make an advance roll, instead just add 6 inches to it. It's very good. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to getting that bike converted up for him. So yeah, he'll just have a lot of mobility once that's done. But anyway, let's get back to how, well, either or, the options that you can run on him. So obviously you have access to making him a Master of Sanctity, which I always do, just I think for the 25 points, it is really worth it. So for that you get, this model knows one additional litany from the Litanies of Battle, and in your command phase, if this model is on the battlefield, it can recite one additional litany it knows that turn. So yeah, it's just doubling the amount of litanies he can churn out and giving him a bit more flexibility of what he does churn out by knowing that extra one. I would always advise doing that if you've got the points, and even if you don't find the points. For 25 points, yes, it's definitely worth it. And on top of that, it gives you access to the Wise Orator Warlord trait, which is very good. Just means his litanies go off on a 2+ rather than a 3+. And if you want to, if you have a litany that's very important that you really want to get off, there's also a stratagem which called the Commanding Orator, which just lets you automatically get one off. So that goes off. That costs 2 CP. If you're not a Wise Orator, if you are, it only costs 1 CP. So that's also a good one, and it gives you access to the Emperor's Judgment, which is not a great relic. Well, it's fine, but when compared to the Benediction of Fury, which we'll get to in a moment, it's less good. So each time an attack is made against the bear, your opponent cannot reroll the hit roll and cannot reroll the wound roll and cannot reroll the damage roll. The bear has the following ability, the Emperor's Judgment Aura. While an enemy unit is within 6 inches of the bear, each time a morale test is taken for that unit, roll 1 additional d6 and discard the lowest result. So, okay, so he becomes a little bit scary, that's kind of nice, and he also has a bit more durability. That is nice when come up against Spheric, for example, Rowan's Warlord, who just rerolls a lot of lightning clot attacks. But the Benediction of Fury, as you've probably seen from other channels and other people, and maybe just know this yourself, is possibly the best relic in the Space Marine Codex. The upgrade that it gives you on the regular Crozius is just very good. So it goes from being +2 strength, AP -1, damage 2, to it goes to +2 strength, AP -2, and damage 3. And on top of that, each time attack is made with this weapon, an unmodified wound roll of 6 inflicts 1 mortal wound in addition to any normal damage. That's just very strong. The other things you could give him are warlord traits. So what's good out of here is Imperium Sword, which I've run once before. So the Wise Orator again is good, and Imperium Sword is good on him. So you can reroll your charge rolls, and each time the sword fights, if it made a charge move or performed a heroic intervention, which again is very good with Space Wolves because you've got that stratagem which costs 0 CP on characters, which lets you heroically intervene up to 6 inches, can be a real big surprise for some opponents, which is good. You perform heroic intervention on this turn. You add +1 to your strength and +1 to your attacks. So that takes him up to strength 7 with whether he's running the Benediction of Fury or the regular Crozias, which is good because it gets you within striking distance of that elusive strength 8, which is a very sort of a magic number in 40k. If you can get yourself up to strength 8, it's always good to be able to do that. So the Litany of Hate he comes with, the Litany of Battle, the regular one which he comes with is Litany of Hate, which just gives him a 6-inch aura of reroll ones to hit in combat. That's very useful, especially as a Space Wolf player, and especially because if I'm running him, I'm not running a Wolf Lord or a Captain. So having that reroll ones aura, still very useful. And then what I run on top of him, the other two that I always take, just because I always run him, as I say, as Master of Sanctity, so I'm always running these two, is the Litany, the Exhortation of Rage. So that gives +1 to 1 unit you select in your, happens in your command phase. So 1 core or character unit within 6 inches of your priest gets a +1 to wound rolls. Very useful for Space Wolves, because we know how powerful that is on Blood Angels. Like they had +1 to their wound rolls, so to get that on Space Wolves is very good. So you're hitting on 2s with a big unit of Blood Claws, for example, and then +1 to your wound rolls. So if you come against something quite big, like a Dreadnought, or even what are they called, a Knight or something, you're still going to be wounding that on 5s or potentially 4s, which is very nice. And if you've got a Thunder Hammer in there, which I always do, you could be wounding that on 3s or potentially 2s. So that's very good. And then Mantra Strength, which is very, very important for Asgrim. I really like getting this off. It's very fluffy. I just imagine him working himself up and getting himself into a big rage. Mantra of Strength, you add +1 to both priests' attacks and strength. So again, if you're running Benediction of, if you're running, I just said it, Imperium Sword, gets him strength 7, adds an extra strength on that, so he's now at strength 8, it's that magic number, and he gets an extra attack, so he's at 6 attacks based on the charge, which is nice. And then you can add 1 to the damage characteristic of the melee weapon. So if you're running Benediction of Fury, suddenly he's at damage 4, which is just crazy. So on that note, I have made the decision that I'm not going to run him anymore with any general Space Marine relics or warlord traits. I just think it's more fun to be running, and fluffy wise, more fun to be running him with things from the Space Wolves Codex. So I am still going to be making him a Wise Orator going forward. And I don't know how you guys feel at home, but I really like it when you've just got a character who is fixed. You know, that's how you like to run him. Doesn't matter if in some matchups it's not going to be as effective. I just like the idea that that is his warlord trait and that is the relic he comes with. You know, I like to run my characters as if they were named characters. You know, they've got this warlord trait, that's who they are, and they've got this relic, that's the weapon they've got. So the relic I'm going to be running him with going forward is the Mountain Breaker Helm, which kind of makes sense with the model. So after making close combat attacks, before you consolidate, select one enemy unit within 1 inch and roll a d6. On a 2+, that unit suffers d3 mortal wounds. So if you've just not quite killed off something, you get to nut him and just, yeah, hopefully do that final bit of damage. So that's good. Again, it's not as good as the Benediction of Fury. I know that, you know that, but it's still not bad. And it's going to make me feel better going forward running him with that. And then we have Warlord traits. I'm still going to be running him with what's that stratagem called? Warrior of Legend. No, it's not that. Whatever the stratagem's called that lets you stick an extra Warlord trait. Is it Warrior of Legend? No, it's not Warrior of Legend. Can't remember what it's called. I think it's just in the regular Space Marine Codex. So lets you take 2 Warlord traits, and the 2 that are going to be fixed on Asgrim from now on are the Beast Slayer. So while this Warlord is within engagement range of any enemy monster or vehicle units, add 1 to attacks characteristic. So he's going to like going off after monsters. And each time this Warlord makes a melee attack against a monster or vehicle, add 1 to that model's hit and wound roll. Very good. And I'm also going to be running him with Wolfkin. So instead of the Shock Assault, you just get D3 attacks. So that, if he's coming up against a monster and he's got Mantra of Strength off, that's 6 attacks. So it's 4 attacks base, +1 for Mantra of Strength, +1 for Beast Slayer, so that's up to 6, and then plus D3 for Wolfkin. So that's potentially 9 attacks against vehicles and monsters. And then, yeah, he's going to be +1 to hit rolls and +1 to wound rolls. So again, if he's got Mantra of Strength off, it's going to be Strength 7. So +1 to wound rolls. It's going to be wounding toughness 8 things on 4s. He's only going to be damage 3 because I'm not running Benediction of Fury, but that's still not bad. And yeah, still very strong for a 110 point model. So that's kind of how I'm going to be running him going forward. Again, he's usually deployed pretty centrally. For me, he's not frontlining, but he's there for that second wave. The aggressors or the Blade Guard or the Blood Claws or sometimes even the Dreadnoughts, they hit first, and then if they don't do the job or if they get killed, he's there to come in and do that killing blow. So that's how I'm going to be running him. Let me know what you think, if this is a mistake, if you really think I should just be running Benediction of Fury. I mean, I probably should. If I ever took him to a tournament, I would still do that. But in terms of what we're doing on the channel, just a bit lighter games, that's how I kind of want to run him. So yeah, let me know what you think. I hope you've enjoyed this, and yeah, we'll see you again soon.